Welcome to Salute Your Sports Week 41. I'm Kamen Enchev with Tom Castleman. We've got a huge show today, Tom. No Drew Brackett. He's currently in the air. We did have the chance to visit with him. He was in Chicago for a wedding this weekend. So all three of us were in Chicago yesterday. We had a great day catching up. It had been since 2015 that all three of us were in the same room or same area rather.
hmm
And I think you and I have seen each other, me and him have seen each other, but not all three of us together.
Yeah, it was a great reunion, spending a wonderful afternoon in downtown Chicago, catching up, reminiscing, all that fun stuff. Safe travels to Drew and his family as they head back to their various homes from a nice long week in Chicago, enjoying a family friend's wedding. And yeah, Drew, unfortunately, not able to be on the show, but definitely sends his regards and, more
Yeah,
importantly, sends his locks of the week
we've
as
got
we're going to
him.
be talking a lot of different stuff today. We've got Olympics coming up this week, going to be starting off pretty soon, opening ceremonies by the end of the week. But where we're going to start off is actually in the NBA, where we had a phenomenal game that I did not have the privilege of being able to see. On
Ooh,
Saturday, I was
oh,
in another state filming a wedding, actually.
there you
I
go.
caught maybe 3 minutes of some scratchy AM radio in the first quarter where all hope seemed lost for Milwaukee, down 21 points at one point. I come home, I get the signal with about 9 seconds left in the game. Everything changed. So, Common, I'm going to throw it to you first because I don't know what the heck happened. How did this game go? How did it go so topsy turvy from Suns being up by so much at home, seemingly cruising like they did games one and game two, to this?
Yeah, it was crazy. I was watching the game in the first quarter. Suns are up 16. I thought the game was over. By the way, this was the second biggest comeback in NBA Finals history after a first quarter deficit. 21 points in 2008. The Celtics were rallied against the Lakers. The only bigger comeback. Really, the key was the Bucks' big three. That's what stood out to me. I mean, they all shot over 50% and all scored 25 points or more. It's only the fifth time a trio has ever done this in NBA history. The last time was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, and James Worthy. A pretty good company there for the Bucks. And you want to hear what the most amazing thing about this last game was? Giannis Antetokounmpo, when he was out of the game in the roughly 7 minutes he missed, the Bucks won. They won the game without Giannis Antetokounmpo. He sat for 7 minutes and 26 seconds. They outscored the Suns by 7, winning the game by 4. So that means that without Giannis, they actually won the game. With him, they were losing. That was something that was crazy. I mean, the Bucks just got so hot in the second quarter. They couldn't miss. Neither team could miss, quite frankly. Both teams shooting over 50%. But the difference was the rebounding. The Bucks had more rebounds, and they simply made more clutch plays late on defense. Drew Holiday probably played the greatest basketball game of his life, and it came at the right time because 27 points, 13 assists, 3 steals. He was all over the basketball court. He outplayed Chris Paul, who actually played pretty good, but that was one area where we thought the Suns would have a big advantage, and it just simply wasn't the case. Devin Booker played another phenomenal game, but too much Giannis, too much Middleton, too much Holiday, and Pat Connaughton 4 for 6 from three off the Bucks bench. I mean, it was literally a perfect basketball game for Milwaukee. I think Phoenix, they play the way they played in that game, they probably win 90% of the games. They didn't play bad. It's just that the Bucks were just so good, so accurate. They hit so many tough shots, and they played just about a perfect basketball game, which is what you need to do as a road underdog in a game five.
Absolutely, yeah. What stood out to me just in kind of reading recaps of the game and going on Twitter, getting different people's opinions on that is that the Bucks surged on the road, something that we didn't see them do in games one or game two. We saw them do that at home in the series in games three and four, where Phoenix would get ahead at a certain point. Not a super huge lead, 9, 10 points, something along those lines. But Milwaukee found a way to fight back. They weren't doing that in the first two games of the series when Phoenix really seemed like they were in complete control of everything going forward. I think pretty big key is something that we kind of have to give some credit to Coach Mike Budenholzer. We knocked him a little bit, giving the edge to Monty Williams for adjustments. Budenholzer made some pretty good adjustments in this series. I mean, going for in this particular game, I'm going to highlight specifically in this game,
Yeah.
riding his big three as much as he did, each of them playing more than 40 minutes, each of them taking more than 20 shots in the game. Role players tend to do better at home. Star players tend to do better just about everywhere. And Mike Budenholzer, the thing that I really enjoyed about seeing what he did in this game is that you have 2 games off, or 2 days off rather, between games 4 and 5, and you have another 2 days off between game 5 and 6. Take advantage of running these guys out there who are all in their mid, to late 20s. They're in the prime of their careers. It's almost a little bit of like a throwback to some of the older days where, it's just the stars are going to carry you, and everybody else that's on the team, just hold on to the cape because you're going to be in for a wild ride. I thought that was a pretty key adjustment. And then also on the defensive side of the ball, I mentioned that, and you mentioned that the Bucks' big three took 75% of the shots in the game. Devin Booker was the only player for Phoenix who took more than 15 shots. That's not good enough if you have a big three with Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. I know they're a little bit different because Paul's a more traditional point guard. Ayton's a big man, but those guys need to get the ball more in order for Phoenix to have a chance coming back.
Yeah, I'm going to tease that, by the way, because I have it in the next round. I want to talk about first what has allowed the Bucks to get back in this series. But when you're talking about Suns shot selection, I'll tease it for about 5 to 10 minutes from now. I'm going to have some good statistics on that, and that's going to be fun. But I mean, the key for Milwaukee to get back in this series simply has been the improved play of Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. The first 2 games, which they lost, Holiday was averaging 13.5 points. The last 4 games, or last 3 games rather, he's averaged 20 points. Middleton has gone from 20 to 29. So they're getting an average of 16.5 more points per game out of those 2 than they did the first 2 games. Giannis also in game 1, obviously just coming off the injury, I think only scored 20 points. He's gotten better since game 1. Game 2, obviously, he was amazing as well. But the difference in the series has been the increased rebounding edge. Now, I know Milwaukee is a better rebounding team. They're a bigger team. They have more guys that can rebound with Giannis, Lopez, Portis off the bench. Even Middleton is kind of big for a small forward 2 guard that gets some rebounds. But for them, it's been the increased edge. Game 1, they had, let's see, hold on, let me pull up the stats here. Yeah, so rebounding has been big. 4 rebound edge, 3 rebound edge the first 2 games. Pretty close. Game 3, they had 11 more rebounds. Game 4, 8 more rebounds. And game 5, again, back to a two rebound edge. And Phoenix almost won that game. So the 2 games Milwaukee have won pretty handedly, especially game 3. They won on the boards by a lot. And the role players stepped up. Pat Connaughton in game 5 was 4 for 6. Bobby Portis was 3 for 6, 9 points off the bench. They didn't take a ton of shots, but when they did, they went in the basket. And I think if you're going to have Giannis, Middleton, and Holiday go all over 25 points, I mean, you're going to have a hard time losing the basketball game. I think Milwaukee has just settled in so nicely in this series. And I don't know if you've seen the pre and post game stuff with Giannis, but man, that guy is wise and mature, and he's focused on the present. They asked him about, like, what do you do about, like, being humble? Like, what makes you humble? And he's like, well, I don't try and talk myself up in terms of what I just did, because that happened. It doesn't matter. And I don't try and think like what I'm going to do, next season or next game. I think about in the present. He's focused on the present, and that's what has been the key for them, because this team, I know they got a lot of help against the Nets, certainly with the injuries, but they've basically been down 2-0 back-to-back series, and they flipped the series to go up in the series, beating the Nets in 7 last series, and now taking a 3-2 lead. I think the Bucks' composure and Giannis's composure has to be given a lot of credit from me. So, I mean, all hats off to Milwaukee. What do you think, Tom, do the Suns have to do, though, to maybe get back in this series?
They need to make adjustments. This kind of ties in with the whole Mike Budenholzer making It's like what Milwaukee is doing is letting Devin Booker have his in terms of putting the ball in the basket and more forcing, DeAndre Ayton, who's not a natural playmaker. I know that they're blitzing Chris Paul on a lot of these screens, these little ball screens that he's trying to run, trying to disrupt his game because once he gets to that mid-range shot, preferably on the right elbow, that's basically a layup every single time. So what they're doing is they're saying, you know what, Devin Booker is one of the top 5, 10 scorers in basketball right now, maybe even higher than that. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head.
Sure.
I mean, they're saying he can beat us. He can go ahead and he can put up 40 so long as we keep everybody else from doing that as far as Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and then force other guys, Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, like these guys aren't playmakers themselves. They're pretty much, catch and shoot types of guys. So if you don't give them a lot of shots, if you don't let them get in a rhythm, that's what Monty Williams has to kind of do in the series is find a way to keep Devin Booker aggressive, but find a way to free up Chris Paul to kind of make a few more plays. He hasn't been effective the past couple of games. I initially thought that was because, on the road, maybe just like a little bit of, extra edge to Milwaukee because of home court and all that. But to see that on game 5, where he wasn't as dominant, at least looking at the stat sheet, wasn't as dominant. I think that's going to be the key to this series is, Monty Williams, we gave him the edge for, adjustments going in. What is he going to be able to do to free these guys up? Because the pressure's on. You're on the road in game 6. If you can get it back home for game 7, I think the pressure then flips back to Milwaukee. More so, it's a game 7. The pressure's on everybody.
You're right. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen in a single game. But I think that will be the key is how do the how do the Suns adjust going on the road and having to have a must win? This is the first elimination game that Phoenix has faced in the series. How are they going to handle that pressure?
And I think, Tom, we're going to have to agree here, and I'll give you the statistics. And here's what I teased. By the way, Chris Paul has been pretty effective this series when he shot the basketball. And his numbers across the board look pretty good. But in order to win the NBA Finals, they have to look phenomenal. And Chris Paul, as great of a passing point guard as he is, he's also a very good scorer. And Chris Paul needs to shoot the ball in order for Phoenix to win. By the way, in this series, he's shooting 53.8% from the field and 48.3% from 3. He's shot the ball great. Minus, I think it was game 3 or game 4, one of those games he had a bad shooting day. But across the board, 4 out of the 5 games, he's been great. The problem is he hasn't taken enough shots. You look at game 1 and game 2 when they won, Chris Paul had 19 shots and 20 shots. You look at the last 3 games, 14, 13, and 15. This guy needs to have minimum 20 shots if they're going to win this series. He needs to look for a shot. He needs to be aggressive. And he needs to, say, I'm going to take over. I know they've got Booker. They could be a great 1-2 duo, but it's sort of been the Booker scoring show. And really what they've done, if you look at these playoff series, they've actually been pretty close. I know Booker's averaging a little bit more points, but Chris Paul has been right there. They've been really more of not a Batman and a Robin. I'm trying to think of what 2 equals would be. I'm trying to come up with the good analogy.
I don't know, maybe like somebody from like the X-Men. X-Men are all kind of equal.
Maybe. Or maybe Buzz Lightyear and Woody from Toy Story.
Sure, we'll go with it.
Not
as formidable as Batman and Robin, but we'll go with it.
Well, my point is that this is Chris Paul and Devin Booker's team. And the way that they're playing right now in this series, this looks like Devin Booker's team. If you hadn't watched this series at all, you wouldn't maybe know that Chris Paul is that aggressive. And he was aggressive in the Clippers series. If you look at the closeout game, that's the game that he put up 40-something points. He doesn't do that. I don't know how that series ends. I know in the past in his career, he's played with Blake Griffin. He's been more of the traditional point guard, but he hasn't won, and he has the ability to score. Chris Paul has a great mid-range game. He's got great handles. He can finish at the rim. He can shoot the 3 ball. There's nothing keeping him from being an elite scorer in this league. So he's going to have to step up and score the basketball. And I said earlier, the rebounding. The first couple games, they got out rebounded by 3 to 4 rebounds. The last few games, game 3 and game 4, we're looking at 8, 10, 11 rebounding edge. Now, rebounding height helps. There is a certain amount of skill and talent, but there's also a certain amount of fundamentals, a certain amount of hard work, and a certain amount of like strategy to it. So I don't think Phoenix is going to win the rebounding battle, but if they can keep it within 3 or 4, they give themselves a chance. But if they're getting out rebounded by 8 to 10 rebounds, I mean they have no shot in this series. And I think
Mhm.
they need to find a way to get the ball out of the Bucks' big three, out of their hands. And I actually think that at this point, I almost would really double Middleton as well as Giannis, just because Chris Middleton hits a lot of tough shots, and he's a really, really good scorer for
Mhm.
Milwaukee. And we talked about this. The big three all had over 25 points. They took shots whenever they wanted to. I don't think Drew Holiday is going to shoot as well. I'm not worried about them doubling him, but they need to find a way. I mean, PJ Tucker is a starter for Milwaukee. He's a guy that plays about 30 minutes a game, and some of these games, PJ Tucker is getting 2 shots a game in some of these
Mhm.
games, 3 shots a game. Like, you need to find a way to make him shoot the basketball. Brooke Lopez, I talked about it the last show we did. By the way, Lopez did shoot well last game, but he's a big guy who sort of transformed his game into a 3-point shooter, but he hasn't shot the three well in the finals. So they need to focus on uh, some sort of defense and some sort of game plan where they can figure out a way to double Giannis and Middleton. Because as long as you're not doubling with Giannis's guy, you can double Middleton too.
Mhm.
So they need to figure out something to allow those guys to take less shots. And if they double him and those guys want to force the ball, that's fine. If Middleton's forcing shots, that's a good sign for Phoenix. Giannis, that's a different story. He might find a way
Mhm.
to make it, but I think Phoenix needs to have a more aggressive Chris Paul, a more aggressive defense on the big three, and I think they can get back in this series. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about Game 6? Do you think this is over? Is Milwaukee like finishing this in Game 6, or is this going to be just another wild turn in a crazy NBA season? More on that in Statement of the Week, by the way.
Yeah, I think this is going to be like another wild game because like we've seen the series adjusting back and forth not just between coaches but between players. I mean, we've seen Giannis go from great to legendary in the series. We've seen Chris Middleton play, usually he's really good, he's playing great. We've seen Drew Holiday, even when he doesn't shoot the ball well, he's upped the intensity on the defensive end and set the tone that whether he's checking Devin Booker or he's checking Chris Paul, that he's given them the business basically 3 quarters to full court, inbound to inbound. So basically, it kind of comes down to the Phoenix Suns players then have to step up their game on the road. And
Hmm.
that's obviously going to be critical because if they don't, they go home. But we've seen, DeAndre Ayton, 20 and 10. That's a really good game. He needs to be better. Chris Paul,
That's
21 and
crazy.
11 for assists. That's a really good game. He needs to be better. And it's crazy to say that sort of thing, but like, Milwaukee, you look at the minutes, Giannis 41, Middleton 44, Holiday 42. On Phoenix, you've got Booker 42, Ayton 45, Paul 35. They have to up those minutes. It's more difficult with Chris Paul given that he's 36, I want to say.
Hmm.
And so I will.
Yeah.
They they need to find a way to step their game up because having a game plan where you have, I'm just looking at the stat sheet here, Cam Payne taking 7 shots, Torrey Craig taking 4 shots. That's not good enough. You need to be siphoning those over to Aiton for those easy layups and alley oops. He's got such great finesse and touch around the rim. Chris Paul, can they find a way? Can he find a way to get to that elbow spot the way that he was able to earlier in the series? My suspicion is not without some sort of schematic change in terms of angling screens a bit differently because Milwaukee has seemed to figure that out pretty well in limiting the number of shots that he's taking in a spot where he's comfortable to take them. So that's the key to game 6 is just, we've seen 2 great games, or we saw a great game in game 5 out of both sets of big three, both sets of stars. That's where it's going to come down to. I wish it could be something as, romantic as, oh, X Factor is the 4th or 5th player in the rotation. It's big
Right.
three versus big three. Who's going to bring the game?
Well, and that you mentioned, Tom, you mentioned that they're needing to play basically the best they can at their very best. Well, that's what the Bucks guys did in game 5, and they had to. They had to, because if they lost game
Hmm.
5, they were in real trouble in that series. And like
Hmm.
I said this earlier, but Holiday with 27 points and 13 assists. I mean, given the situation, given his field goal percentage, given his defense and his clutch steal and assist, I mean, it was literally the greatest basketball game that Drew Holiday has played in probably his
Sure.
entire life. If you simply don't have that performance from Holiday, I know I think Middleton has been up and down, but certainly not a surprising game from him because he's shown this throughout these playoffs at times to take over. Giannis, nothing he does surprises us, but that was the difference in the last game. It was Drew Holiday playing the greatest game of his life, and if that hadn't happened, we might be talking about this series being over and Phoenix
Hmm.
being the champs. And really, it's been a matter of kind of a few close moments. If you look at games 1 and 2, Phoenix was in control. Game 3, Milwaukee won by a decent margin. But game 4, Phoenix was down like what, 1 point with 3-4 minutes to go. In game 5, they were down 1 point with 16 seconds to go. With Booker there looking to get the shot when Holiday made the steal. So it's been a few close plays that have pushed the Bucks in front, and it sort of reminds me of the Cavaliers and Warriors series. I think certainly the Bucks are not nearly the underdog that the Cavs were in 2016, but when the Warriors got up 3-1 in that series, you needed the absolute best performance from LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, and you got it. And you
Hmm.
needed the Warrior guys to be human. I mean, Chris Paul is playing very well. He is still playing well. Aiton's still playing well, just like Curry and Thompson played well. But for their standards in the 2016 finals, Curry and Thompson played about as bad as you can expect from them. I mean, no one thinks they're going to shoot 30% and score 15 a game. Again, I'm not saying they played bad, but for their standards, they played about where you'd expect them to. And Chris Paul, for this playoff run that he's had, he needs to play up a little bit. And I think DeAndre Ayton's important. They need to get him the ball more. He is a very good scorer down low. They need to get him involved. He's shooting such a high percentage, but they're not giving him enough looks. And I know that percentage might go down a little bit if he doesn't, if he's taking more shots, but they need that presence from him. And something that they talked about, I think Booker, I was watching this morning, pregame press conference. He was talking about how well the Bucks are getting out to the Phoenix 3-point shooters and
Hmm.
how well they're doing that. Well, if you get DeAndre Ayton involved, it's going to just open things up just a little bit more. He might get a double team here or there, and you just may have a little bit more spacing. And you're going to get that if Chris Paul is on the ball more as opposed to Devin Booker, too. I mean, Chris Paul creates a little bit more for his teammates. I mean, Devin Booker's getting the Kobe comparisons, and Kobe can pass when he wants to, but Booker and Kobe are more of like straight up scorers. Chris Paul, like, is the guy who will also set the other guys up. And if Chris Paul has the ball in his hands and he's actively looking to shoot, he's actively looking for DeAndre Ayton to have a chance. And I'll tell you this, I'm going to be bold here. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say Phoenix is going to win game 6. Phoenix is going to win game 7, and they're going to win the finals because on paper, the Bucks should win game 6, given how well they played at home, given the momentum, given everything that's happened. But this has been the 2021 sports year. We've seen this all over sports. I mean, we talked about it. It started with the Super Bowl. The Chiefs should have beaten the Bucks. The Chiefs were the favorite. The Chiefs had lost like one game and they're the defending Super Bowl champions, but it didn't work out for the Chiefs. Chelsea and Manchester City in the Champions League. You had the first against the fourth place team in England. Chelsea won. Argentina beat Brazil in the World Cup. I mean, the way this year has been, everything hasn't been played on paper. But even on paper, Phoenix had the most wins on the road in the regular season and the postseason, which they closed out 2 series on the road. So if there's a team that's capable to win on the road, I think it's Phoenix. So I'm going to say Chris Paul listens to Salute Your Sports, or someone else gives him the same information. CP3 drops 30 points or more in game 6. He leads the Suns to a close win, and then the Suns go ahead and win game 7. And since I picked Phoenix to win before the finals started, last week I know we talked about how you and I got every pick right in our redos. Well, I'm going to
Mhm.
stick with my original pick. This is more sort of a gut feeling because, I mean, if we analyze the stats, which I love to do, Phoenix should have won game 5, Milwaukee wins game 6, Phoenix wins the series. That's how it should have gone according to script. Well, things aren't going according to script, so I'm going to say Phoenix is going to flip the script. Now all of a sudden the Bucks, the 5-point favorites. Either way, I'll be very happy because either Giannis wins a ring, either Chris Paul wins a ring. I
Mhm.
think both of them need them for their legacy. I know Giannis certainly has more chances to get it, but he's gotten a lot of hate the last few years. And honestly, like Giannis has stepped up his game a little bit, but a lot of it is actually Drew Holiday and Middleton stepping up their game because when your teammates help you, it just makes it easier. He's not carrying as much of a burden on his shoulders as he has the past 2 years. And Drew Holiday has really worked out that signing. We talked about it in the preseason. Like, was it a big signing? Like, it helped obviously, but was it enough to push him over the top? And like, we didn't think it was. And honestly, it probably wouldn't have been if the Nets were healthy. But at the
Mhm.
moment, Drew Holiday is looking like arguably the signing of the year, maybe after Chris Paul, obviously,
Sure.
given what he's done. But yeah, I'll take Phoenix. Give me the Suns.
For whatever reason, it just kind of feels like Milwaukee's year. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like there's a little
Sure.
bit of that sense, and it's difficult to kind of like pinpoint that statement until the year's already concluded. I mean, the most like memorable things I can think of is like 2005 with the White Sox, that was their year. 2016 with the Cubs, that was their year. And in basketball, it's a little bit different because you don't have as many variables. There's only 5 guys on the court, and the best player is capable of affecting a game at literally any point in time, offensively or defensively. So I understand basketball is a little bit different, but there's almost like some sort of fait accompli with the Bucks ascending to this point.
Storyline Castleman.
Exactly. Like either way, there's good storylines and bad storylines that are going to come out of this. It's either going to be, Chris Paul finally gets over the hump and gets a ring, or is he just the latest in a long line of stars who aren't good enough to win a championship, which is ridiculous. Like I
Yeah,
said
it's a
it a
team
couple weeks
game.
ago, it's a team game. Losing is the default setting, and for whatever reason, and there's multiple reasons I understand for why rings become such a big part of a conversation. I don't think Chris Paul's career or legacy is that much diminished because he doesn't happen to have, that specific piece of
To,
hardware.
to me, to
But
me and you, it isn't. But to outsiders
I
and fans
understand.
and
Yes,
media,
exactly.
to them, it is a huge deal. I mean,
Absolutely.
and it shouldn't be, but it is. It is a huge deal. And if
Yeah,
you
I
if you
completely
think
understand.
about it,
Yeah.
let's just say, and I know it's the whole championship ring, but let's just say the
Mhm.
Suns win Game 6, then they lose Game 7, and like that one game, I know it's the whole season, it's the championship, but in essence, one game basically determines your legacy because if he
Exactly.
wins Game 7, doesn't win Game 7, that's one basketball game. I completely agree with you,
Mhm.
but I don't think the vast majority of fans or media members or even NBA players would agree with you, sadly.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the difference between being, having really good career, a great NBA career, and then having that extra sign of respect on your name. But I don't know. I'm just kind of feeling the Bucks in this one, winning it at home for whatever reason. They just feel like the team that's going to do it. Obviously, it wouldn't surprise me if Phoenix does. That's the great thing about this series is like, for all, like in the best way possible, I didn't care who won. I was
Right.
going to be thoroughly entertained. That's what I was
Me
hoping for,
too.
which is
Yeah.
why once Phoenix went up 2-0, I was actually hoping for Milwaukee to come back to make it, 6 or 7 games, which we've had. We've been treated to a phenomenal series. So I think the Bucks can end it in game 2. I'm not going to be disappointed at all if we get to hang out all together, separately
Sure.
but collectively Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central on ABC to watch that game.
I'll tell you
7. I
this,
think it's going to be phenomenal either way.
Tom. Unfortunately, you missed the best game of the finals. Game 5 was
Mhm.
by far the best game in the series. I felt it was had so much drama and so much shot making. I mean, I just got to give
Mhm.
credit to these NBA players.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people like to trash NBA defenses, and that to me is just completely wrong. If you actually sit down and watch a basketball game, just the amount of tough shots these guys hit. I know there's something special about the college basketball tournament. I love it, but as a fan of someone who's covered a lot of college basketball, I've seen a lot of college basketball game in person at the SEC level, especially, which is pretty high level of basketball. Big 12 before that. The NBA guys are the NBA guys. No one
Mhm.
is better than these guys, and just the sheer amount of shot making we've witnessed in these playoffs and these finals is phenomenal. I'll say this too, as far as just something that popped up in my head when you're talking about like legacies and rings. It's just like the finals just has this different feel to it because Michael Jordan is invincible for being 6-0 in the NBA finals. But
Mhm.
Michael Jordan had many first round exits.
Sure.
LeBron, and I know a lot of them were earlier in his career before he had teammates, but I mean, that's the whole point. Like LeBron James got slammed for not winning and he didn't have teammates and he took his team to the finals. So at what point, like, is it like whether you lose in the finals or you lose in the first round? It's hard to compare. But that's why Jordan is so mythical because he's never lost in the finals. And that's just going to be the storyline for Chris Paul now. It's like, oh, he finally got there, but he lost. But I'm going to say he's going to win. I again, I am happy with whatever happens as well. I just have been so big on the Suns in this show. I'd rather
Mhm.
be right. I hyped these guys up before the season. I don't know if you
Sure.
remember when we did our preseason predictions. I had them as the 2 seed out west. I had them in the Western Conference Finals, a team that hadn't made the finals in 10 or the playoffs in
Was
10
that
years.
preseason or early season?
It might have
I
been
think it was
early
early
season.
season. I remember preseason when we were picking like, oh, who was a team that missed the playoffs that was going to make it?
Well, I
Like, I
had
remember we
Phoenix,
were
yeah.
all on the Warriors, and then it
I,
was like, but keep an eye out for the Suns. I think we were both on that one too.
yeah,
I just didn't think they'd be that good, but like I knew
no,
that
and
they'd
maybe
be
it
like
was early
playoff
season.
good.
I actually thought
Yeah,
Warriors and Suns would make it. I can't remember who I thought would be out from last season, but
I think you said the Trailblazers.
I don't know.
I have a pretty good feeling you said the
I don't think it
Trailblazers.
was the Trailblazers. I'm trying to think who was the 8 seed last year in the playoffs
Yeah, it was
or
Portland.
the 7 seed. No, I
Yeah,
like
no, Portland was the
Portland.
bubble team that like they had a great run along with Phoenix, and it was just
Yeah,
because
but they had a
Portland was
lot of
so good that Phoenix
injuries.
didn't make it.
I
Yeah.
can't remember honestly who I picked, but I mean I've been high on the Suns and I think it'd be a cool story.
Mhm.
Regardless, though, those cities, most of those fans have not seen a basketball championship. In fact, I don't know if they've seen any championship. I mean, I guess Milwaukee's close to Green Bay. What's the geographical uh,
Yeah, it's same state, so
area
most
there?
Milwaukee fans are going to be Green Bay Packer
Right.
fans. So that's a
But the
pretty big
Bucks
one.
last one in
Wisconsin Badgers, of
71.
course.
Right, but the Suns have never won. The
Hmm.
Bucks last won in 1971. So if you're just a diehard Suns or Bucks fan, you've never seen this. So
Hmm.
I'm excited for the fans, regardless. And I've got to say, like, all these players have played well. I know we're calling on Chris Paul to shoot the ball more, which he should do. But if you look at his numbers in these series, they're pretty good.
Yeah,
He's playing well. This has been just a very well played finals. It hasn't been a matter of someone choking or not playing well. It's just been these teams have played well, and I'll have more on this in statement of the week. But the NBA Finals has not lost its excitement without LeBron James, without
hmm
Stephen Curry. It has been very good. It's delivered, and I've thoroughly enjoyed watching it. And I'm looking forward to Game 6, and hopefully looking forward to Game 7.
we shall see. Nobody looking forward to Game 6 more than our own Drew Brackett, who's been on this bandwagon for I don't know how long.
3 years for the Bucks. He's picked
Fear
in
the
three
fear the
years to
deer
win.
and fear the Drew. Olympics week is
Yeah,
going to be
Olympics week.
coming up. So we have, I guess, do we want to start with like recap of Olympics past? Do we want to talk about the Olympics coming up this week? I know there's some
I want to
dicey
save
stuff going on.
yeah, I want to save the Olympics for this week last. I was thinking we can either sort of recap some of our favorite memories first, or we could just get into a fun question, which is what I kind of had, just to get the Olympic talk started in a
Hmm.
fun way as to who we think is the best Olympian ever. I think we're probably going to have the same answer, but I've got
Really?
several different guys written down and
Yeah,
females as well.
I have a couple of names. I mean, obviously, being an American, my list is almost exclusively that. I mean, to start off with the one that is most impressive to me, Simone Biles is right up there, number one. I talked about her a couple of weeks ago with the Olyarchenko. Also being, I think now by now she has surpassed and has more
Now,
world championships and gold and medals than any other. She's the most decorated female gymnast of all time, I think, after the
uh,
world
well,
championships.
maybe with the World Championship, not with the Olympics, though. But my question
Yeah.
is, are you talking about Simone Biles like all time or in the current Olympics? Because I was thinking like I'm talking thinking all time Olympian because I think
Oh yeah.
Biles is you. So you have her as all time
I
Olympian.
have her as the best Olympian ever, and like I'm kind of grading on a curve given how much more athletic athletes have gotten over time. Like if you look at
Sure,
like Jesse Owens's time back in the 1932 Olympics, was it, compared to today? Obviously, completely different. So I'm adjusting to kind of grade on a
sure.
little bit of a curve. I mean, you have Michael Phelps who dominated every single event that he was in for
My
sure. But
answer.
I think in terms of like sheer talent, forget the term head and shoulders. Simone Biles, I think, is an entire body, albeit a 4'6" ahead of like every other
I like it.
Olympian, because the things that she does is just like so incredible. It's almost like she was manufactured in a lab to be like the perfect ratios and heights, and like she's just like phenomenal. And I don't know how she's able to keep her internal balance as she's doing these crazy flips. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I think an article came out a couple of weeks ago how she was critiquing, judges that her routines are so difficult that they're actually beyond what the scale is actually set for.
Yeah,
And I mean,
and
I don't understand
they're not giving
gymnasts.
her like extra points for it because
Right. Like
it's
like
just
she's
Simone
literally
Biles.
breaking the system. Like you can have, stronger, faster swimmers, but when you're going into something like that where she's just that much better that like even the judges can't comprehend exactly how to score. Like that's why for me, she's the
Yeah,
best Olympian all time. I know Michael Phelps, he was there like literally 2 Olympics ago. That's how fast these things can change.
last
And then I have
Olympics.
a couple of names, especially in like specific events in terms of most dominant Olympians ever,
Hmm.
but I'll give you a chance to throw a couple names out there as
Yeah.
well.
So first off, Simone Biles is the number one right now. I think Simone Biles is definitely a good answer for it. My reasoning, and I'll give you a couple gymnasts who I
Mhm.
have also in the mix. The reason why it is Michael Phelps, and I'll get in his accomplishments in a little bit. And again, it's different sports. I know the gymnasts don't tend to go as long a lot of times, but we've seen Michael Phelps do it. I mean, 4 Olympics. This will be
Mhm.
Biles' second Olympics. I'm sure she's going to deliver, but the sheer longevity of what we've seen from Michael Phelps is for me. But I think there's a
Sure.
lot of really good gymnasts. And I know it's very hard to compare eras. And I do agree with the world championships. Biles has done a ton. But actually, Larissa Latinina of the Soviet Union as a gymnast actually has the second most medals in Olympic history behind Michael Phelps. You look at Nadia Comaneci, she had the perfect 10 in 1976. She got a couple more perfect 10s in 1980. She has 9 Olympic medals, including the 1976 all around. So I think there's just several gymnasts, if we're talking about the history of the Olympics, who you can compare to Simone Biles. I think certainly it's very hard to compare
Mhm.
eras. I think their skills are not what her skills are, but if they were playing now, who's to say that they can't do some of those things? I don't know. It's very hard to
Sure.
compare eras. But as far as like all-time Olympic gymnasts, there has been other greats. I would put Biles number one, but I'm saying that the gap in terms of who else is there with her in her own sport, if we're talking about the history of the Olympics and the accomplishments that we've seen so far, there are others in the mix. I mean, and I don't know if she's going to be in the next Olympics. I don't know what she's going to do these Olympics. But for me, that has to count against her. A few other names I'll throw out there: Usain Bolt, '08, 2012, and
Mhm.
2016 Olympics. 9 events, 9 gold medals in the 100, 200, and 4x1. Actually, his 4x1 gold was later stripped because a teammate had used performance-enhancing drugs. But
Of
almost
course. Yeah.
all of those Olympics for him were world records too. His dominance is just like Phelps. Phelps and Bolt, every time they step on the court or on the track or the swimming pool, you expect them to win. A few other honorable mentions. I look at guys like Jesse Owens, Carl Lewis. Jim Thorpe, several track stars who've won multiple medals in multiple events.
Hmm.
Michael Johnson, the 200 and 400, he was the fastest 200 record holder before Bolt, held that record for a pretty long time. So he was really good. Jackie Joyner Kersee on the women's side has medaled in 4 Olympics for America. Then you look at Allison Felix, who I think is an athlete that we can't forget. She
Hmm.
has medaled in 3 Olympics, and now she's 35 and she's as a mother recently. We'll have more on storylines, but she's someone to look out for. And then I look at, I talked about Comaneci and Latinina, great gymnasts. Carrie Walsh Jennings, I think, often doesn't get put in these arguments when she should. You look at what she's done in beach volleyball. She's got
Sure. Yeah.
3 gold medals and a bronze medal in 4 Olympics. And then, of course, don't forget about Mark Spitz. He's the original medal record holder with 7 golds. Michael Phelps breaking his record as well. I have to mention pretty much the entire dream team in basketball in 1992. I mean, Jordan, Johnson, Magic, those guys were so good. But for me, I think it is Michael Phelps because his dominance is just unbelievable. I mean, I know Simone Biles is great. You look at what Biles did in the last Olympics. She won the all around, the team competition. She won the floor and she won the vault. But she actually got third in the beam, which she could get first easily. And then the bars are her weak one. But she doesn't she didn't get gold in all of the
Hmm.
individual events all the time. And I know Phelps doesn't do everything, but he does the 100 butterfly, the 200 butterfly, the 100 free, the 200 free, the 200 IM, which is all 4 strokes. Then the
Hmm.
400 IM, which is a longer difference of the all 4 strokes. Then he does the 4x1 in butterfly and the 4x1 in freestyle. And he has 28 Olympic medals, 23 golds. And guess what? He's competed in 30 events at the Olympics. The only events he didn't win a gold in or a medal was actually, we forget about this. He actually competed in 5 Olympics. He was actually in the 2000 Sydney Games as a 15-year-old, where he got
Hmm.
5th place in the 200 fly. And then the only other event is when he got a 4th place in the 400 IM in 2012 when he was injured, hadn't practiced much, the hardest race in the in swimming, and he got 4th place. So literally 23 out of 30 are golds. And you look at what he did at the 2008 Olympics. He not only went 8 for 8, he set 7 world records and an Olympic world record. So actually, all 8 swims he had in the pool were Olympic records, and 7 of them were world records. No one has done that. I mean, his sheer dominance. And you look at some of these races. I mean, this guy wins, those 200 freestyle, 200 IM, 400 IM. He wins a lot of these races by a lot. No one is even close. I mean, it was to the point where he was racing against himself. And I know that's what Simone Biles is doing too. I do like your pick, but just the sheer number. I know his sport allows him to get more medals, but he has the most medals and he has the highest percentage of gold to medal to competition ratio because this guy literally won almost every single time he stepped in the pool, and he just literally invincible.
Absolutely, yeah. And you want to talk about like one of my favorite graphics of all time. You want to talk about like Simone Biles being like the perfect size everything for being a gymnast. Michael Phelps happens to have the perfect proportions where they did something where it's like his legs are shorter than average, so he has quicker, more powerful strokes. His torso is longer than the average, and then his arms were longer. So it's basically like Michael Phelps was built to swim type of thing. It's
Yep.
like he is absolutely a phenomenal as well. I'm probably getting myself caught up in some recency bias with just how dominant
Yeah.
Simone Biles is, but I also think like whenever it's like you're breaking a scoreboard, like that's hard. That just kind of like
Sure.
boggles the mind type of thing. So that kind of transitioned into like some favorite moments. I know Michael Phelps has a lot of great moments in the Olympics. I mean, for me, the stretch where he's, where it was the relay, and they almost, or no, The relay was a different one. The relay was where one of his teammates picked him
Yep.
up, but there was
I
one event where it was a solo
Yep.
event,
It was
and he just ever so slightly outreached.
It was a 100 butterfly,
Mhm.
and it was, I think, his seventh out of eight Olympic golds. And then the last one was a relay, which was the 4x1 IM, which the Americans knew that they were going to win.
Sure.
And so this race basically decided whether he was going to go 8 for 8. He was behind pretty much the whole race. He had a late charge. He was actually going to lose, but the other swimmer decided to take, or rather, didn't take an extra stroke.
Mhm.
Phelps took an extra stroke. He reached out with his arms, hit the wall 1/10 of a second before him, literally the closest that could be. And I believe it was Michael Kavik out of Serbia who actually like basically trash talked Phelps and basically said he was going to beat him. And he
Mhm.
almost did. He beat him for 99.9% of the race. But that last 1/100th of a second, Phelps reached out and beat him. That was literally, when I think of the greatest Olympic moments, the first two that come to mind are the ones that you gave me. The fly race and the 4x1, which, by the way, just 2 weeks ago I rewatched both of these races, so they're really fresh in my mind. But the 4x1 was dramatic because that was the one race that Phelps was not favored to win, and it was a
Mhm.
relay. It was a 4x100 freestyle relay, and this was the race that was going to keep Phelps from winning the 8 golds. The French team was the best 4x1 relay in the history of the sport. They were phenomenal. They were like the world champions. And Rowdy Gaines, who's one of the all-time great announcers, the swimming announcer, his passion for the Olympic swimming just gets you into it. And Rowdy Gaines had calculated the times, and he said it like before the swimming race. He's like, I fear that it's just not possible for the Americans to win this race. And it was kind of going according to script. The French were up, and in goes to the pool Alain Bernard, the world record holder, top 100-meter guy in the world, and Jason Lezak, the longtime veteran of the U.S. He's in his 30s. He had a lot of success, but oftentimes, he'd been like a bronze medal guy in the individual event, and the 100 was really like his only race that he swam, and the relay was kind of like his time to shine. And he swam the greatest leg in the history of the 4x1 relay. He chased down Bernard. He had a huge lead. He rode the wave, chased him down, just barely beat him in the end. And that race was so good that like 4 teams in that race, or 3 or 4, had what would have beat the world record. I remember at one point in the race, Rowdy Gaines is like,
Mhm.
"Oh, there's 4 teams above the world record line," and it was just like it was just such a like dramatic swim. And it's what literally, and that was actually only the second. I think it was the second or third event for Phelps at those Olympics. So how anticlimactic would it have been
Mhm.
if they get a silver medal and all of a sudden like Phelps's
Right.
record is out the window, and you just saw the sheer emotion that he had, like the whoa, like I'm doing it really badly, but like he had that like moment of just being fired up, and that was just such a phenomenal race. It was just, I remember having chills. I have chills right now just talking about it. So
Yeah,
those
I
are the
think
two my two favorite. I've talked a lot. I can give you a few more memories. I have a little like thing to read you just about the '08 Beijing Olympics.
no,
Like,
I had a quick comment. I think you and I are about 8 abs short of being able to imitate Michael Phelps doing anything shirtless.
yeah, no
But
kidding.
like, wasn't that the year that they had the full body swimsuits, and like that's how everybody was able to get like so far ahead of world records? Where like just like left and right they're being smashed because
I
everybody was like
think
more
that might
streamlined.
have been
Wasn't
the following Olympics.
was it? It was
I
one of
think
them where
so.
they were just like, "Hey, we're gonna stop doing this whole full body swimmer thing because it makes people too good," you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that was 2012, but nonetheless, like,
mhm,
but so I'll tell you this real quickly about the Olympics.
sure.
First off, the Olympics are tied for my favorite sporting event in the world with the World Cup. That's like a tie for me because the whole world watches it. It unites the world. There's sort of passion around it that you don't see. What the Olympics has is that it has so many different sports, and some of the sports we don't get to see year round.
Hmm.
So to me, it's special. I have a whole long thing to say about the '08 Beijing Olympics, which is the greatest sporting event in the history of sports. And quite frankly, it's not even close. Nothing comes even close to the '08 Beijing Olympics. So many of my all time favorite memories come right from that. So I'm going to read you my paragraph here. So I'm going to look down at my notes so I don't miss
Okay, go.
anything.
Do you need to
So if
get
I'm
like
not,
any reading glasses, bifocals, something like that?
I don't need the reading glasses. Actually, I
Okay.
am. What is the thing called? Farsighted, or like I don't see well far.
Okay, yeah, that's farsighted.
Farsighted or nearsighted, whatever. The point is,
Nearsighted. Oh wait, no,
n-
nearsighted you can't see far things.
yeah,
Farsighted you
nearsighted
have
is
trouble with short
right.
things.
It's the
Yeah.
opposite. So I wear glasses sometimes. I've got my contacts in now, but I wouldn't need the glasses regardless because I see close. I don't see far. But this is what happened in the '08 Olympics. Things that happened at the 2008 Olympics. Michael Phelps went 8 for 8 in golds, breaking the record, got 8 Olympic records and 7 world records, including some insane finishes, which we referenced. Usain Bolt was 3 for 3 in golds, breaking world records, I believe, in all of them. And I'll tell you this, my dad, who is not a man to laugh very much, not a huge sports fan, anyways, but one of my most vivid memories I have of my father, like ever, especially with sports, is he was watching the Olympics with me. He was watching the 100 meters. I think it was like the semifinal heat, so it wasn't the final. Usain Bolt was so far ahead. He was laughing, looking over his head, like just having fun. You could tell that he was toying with the other racers, and my dad was
Mhm.
just laughing. So that was just a fun memory personally. Also, Lionel Messi, my favorite soccer player ever. I got a new Messi poster so we could see him better over there from the 2018 World Cup, the now Copa America champion. In the '08 Olympics, Messi won a gold medal with Argentina. Very happy for Messi there. We had Roger Federer, who at the time, I don't know if you remember this, this was right after the '08 Wimbledon, and everyone was talking about how Nadal has surpassed them. Federer was supposed to be on the way down, which he ended up not being, but he didn't win it in singles, but he won the gold medal in doubles. And the sheer emotion that Federer had winning the gold medal in doubles for his country was incredible. Nadal, by the way, won the gold in singles. We had the Williams sisters winning the gold
Mhm.
in doubles for tennis. We had the USA Redeem Team basketball after the 2004 failure where they got bronze. They put together what is probably the second greatest basketball team of all time. You can even make a case for the greatest team. I think the '08 team is right up there with the '92 team for the best basketball team of all time. We had LeBron, we had Wade, we had Kobe, we had Durant, all these guys playing together, something we had never seen before. It was truly special. You had the U.S. women's soccer won the gold. Several really dramatic finishes in the semis and finals there. We had Nastia Lukin and Shawn Johnson. They went 1-2 in the women's individual gymnastics. That was an exciting duo at the time. I may or may not have had a crush on Shawn Johnson during the 2008 Olympics, emphasis on the May. Probably a crush on both of them. But nonetheless, aside from that, Misty May and Kerry Walsh won the gold in beach volleyball. Then we had Dara Torres, who had just turned 40. She had just been a mother the year before, and she was out there winning medals as a 40-year-old mother in swimming. It was just incredible. We had, the Lezak and Bernard chase downs that we talked about. And of course, Bob Costas was still the announcer at the time. There's nothing that goes better together than Bob Costas in the Olympics. It's a better combo than peanut butter and jelly. It just is. So it's almost hard watching the Olympics without him. I know Mike Tirico, Dan Patrick, wonderful, incredible sportscasters, but Bob Costas is Bob Costas. And of course, the 2008 Olympics also had, by far, hands down, the greatest Olympic opening ceremony in the history that there's ever been. It was just true art, true beauty. It was phenomenal. One of my neighbors is from China, and I was just telling her how much I love the opening ceremony. And she's like, "Oh, wow, I'm impressed you know that." She's like, "Yeah, we put on a show. That's what we do." And I'm like, "Yeah, you sure did." So that was just a cool thing. The closing montage NBC played was with the Titan Spirit song from Remember the Titans, my favorite movie. I just got like chills watching it. For some reason, I really remember Lolo Jones falling off the hurdle. It was that like kind of like sad moment. She wanted the gold medal. Just a phenomenal sporting event, something that I've never seen before and likely will never see again.
That was like a borderline novella.
Yeah, telenovela or just novella. A
Yeah,
book.
no, just a short little novel on the Olympics. Yeah, so kind of moving into
Do you have any other
storylines
memories?
then.
Because I have a few other. We'll move in the storylines, but did you have any other memories? I just have a few other memories from other
I
Olympics
mean,
to hit on real
yeah,
quick.
obviously Usain Bolt is a big one. The one that I liked, it's also in swimming. It's Katie Ledecky, kind of the
Hmm.
female American version of Michael Phelps. And there was one particular race, I believe it was the 800 freestyle, where
He was on the
by
other
the
side of the
end of the
pool
race, she's the only one on
in
the
the
TV
camera.
screen by like half a pool at least. I think
Yeah,
she won that race by like a full 12 seconds. It was some ridiculous thing. And like it's really cool seeing in the Olympics like the snapshot moment, of just like by a tenth of a second, Michael Phelps is still on track to get, a record in gold medals. It's also really incredible to see an Olympic swimmer or just any sort of Olympian so much far ahead of his or her contemporaries that like that sort of off the charts athleticism and talent and is just incredible to see as well. So that was another favorite moment. Really quick aside, this isn't going to be like a statement of the week, but I have seen on Twitter the usual petition making the rounds of, hey, can we get just like an ordinary person doing what these people are doing, these trained athletes, just so we can see exactly what the frame of reference is for how much better, how much more dedicated and talented and just naturally gifted these athletes are than just us mere mortals. So we can maybe have a little bit better appreciation. It doesn't even have to be a real person.
yeah.
Like in the event, it just has to be here's Tom swimming from one end of the pool to the other, like as a line. And basically just like, watching everybody finishing the race by the time I get from one end to the other.
And I'll give you
Just a
a very
thought.
I'll give you a very quick reference to that,
Uh
kind of
huh.
make myself look silly. But for me, in I think it was like junior year of high school, which by the way, like I was like in or maybe it was sophomore year actually. It was sophomore year. That's right. And I was in the best shape of my life sophomore year of high school. I was still a soccer player. I was still like fairly thin. I was tall. I mean, I was by no means a world class athlete, but I was pretty athletic and
Sure.
in the best shape of my life. I actually got the second best score in sit and reach in our class behind only a gymnast. So I was fairly flexible in my mind, like fairly athletic person, by no means like a beast, but your
Hmm.
typical like average person who's just a little bit more athletic than the average person. So sort of like, basically
Sure.
what you're
Yeah.
proposing. So I thought it would be fun to try to walk across the balance beam in gymnastics, just to walk across it,
Hmm.
not do any flips or anything, just walk in a straight
One
line
foot in front of
across
the
it.
other.
Right. And it was bad. It took me like 5 or 6 tries. I finally got it at the end and I felt immense pride. And that was just walking across. These girls are doing flips over it. They're doing like little like things and jumps and like and I don't know. It's just the balance beam to me is my favorite like event in the Olympics period. I think it's just such a cool event and I think it's just so hard to do and so many of them make it look easy when it's
Hmm.
hard. So that's what I think of.
Well, yeah,
What?
actually, before we get into storylines, let's talk a little bit about some of our favorite events to watch because
Yeah, we forgot about that.
in similar vein to gymnastics, I actually really like watching. It's not. Is it the pommel horse where they've got the two handles?
Yeah,
It's in men's
the
gymnastics.
males. Yep,
For whatever reason,
I
there's
love that
just
one.
something like almost therapeutic and zen about watching that, and you just hear like the slap of like hands like
Hmm.
on the leather, and it's just like and just like how they do the twirl around thing with the
It's
hand
so
like
crazy.
it's that's one of my favorite events. Obviously, like the highlight events of like the major swimming races, the 100 and 200 meters, like those are always really fun to watch. As far as those go, oddly enough, not a huge fan of watching the Olympic, like watching ordinary sports in the Olympics. Like I can get
Right.
basketball elsewhere. Soccer's a little bit different. I actually appreciate this watching soccer in the Olympics and in the World Cup because it's nationality based
Yeah.
and it's going against like everyone else in the world as opposed to just like a specific region. So like I actually kind of enjoy Olympic soccer, I suppose. But like things like tennis, like I don't really need that in the Olympics. But
Mm,
like I like some of those, like more like off-brand events in
sure.
terms of track and field. Obviously, I think ping pong's going to be is one of the
Yeah,
ones on there. Like, there's a
I
lot of
love
great
it.
events. Yeah,
Table tennis. Yeah, that's one of the ones that I
yeah.
was going to list.
The more professional name.
Right, the professional name. Just real quickly, I just want to like hit
Sure.
on these moments real fast, and I'll get into
Mhm.
my favorite things. But something, my one of my first Olympic memories was the '04 Olympics when USA basketball lost to Manu Ginobili in Argentina. It was one of those crazy moments in the semifinals. Also, Michael Phelps against Ian Thorpe, the great Australian swimmer, in the '04 Athens Games was memorable. And then I have 2016. I also had Katie Ledecky down, and also Phelps and Bolt Swan Song. But as far as favorite sports to watch, I really, really enjoy table tennis. It's crazy. Speaking of like, what can normal people do? What those guys do is just
Hmm.
insane. I really like beach volleyball, and I think it's more
Yes.
exciting than normal volleyball just because of the sheer amount of like dives and saves you see when it's two people on the court. And now having played in a rec volleyball league here recently, I sort of gained a new appreciation for the sport. It is certainly much harder than it looks. I'll tell you that much. I do really like the swimming and track and field and gymnastics. I know those are the big sports, but what's special about them is that those athletes have pressure unlike anything else. They have literally, you look at all those other main sports, soccer, basketball, there's different years, different performances. In the Olympics, it's once every 4 years. I actually try to watch gymnastics, swimming, and track and field world championships because I'm a sports nut. But most people don't do that. They don't watch the world championships. And obviously, with the Olympics being every 4 years, injuries happen. Guys aren't always as good. And for some of these people, it's sort of like a once in a lifetime moment. And the sheer pressure they have is unlike anything that anyone else faces, especially a sport like gymnastics. You fall, you lose. Like that's
Hmm.
it. One fall and you're done. Similarly in like swimming and track, it's those races are seconds. So you make one mistake, your gold medal dreams are over. I do like the tennis actually because the tennis is sort of like a Davis Cup crowd. It's one of those like really different atmosphere where the fans get into it and they're more allowed to yell as opposed to a normal tennis match where it's really quiet. So
Hmm.
that part of it is special. Um, Olympics is cool for women's soccer. Team USA are just a very fun team to watch. I pretty much enjoy everything. Gymnastics is really cool because if you watch the men's and women's, a lot of the events are different. So you kind of get like a different view into certain events. But it's beautiful because you get a chance to watch everything.
Hmm.
Rhythmic gymnastics, where they're like twirling the little thing and they're throwing the balls, like that stuff. I watch with my mom. She's really into it. Bulgaria
Okay.
always has a team in the Olympics. That I think is a very underrated in many ways. It's just as cool and interesting as the artistic gymnastics or whatever they call it. So that's also a fun one to watch. But all of it, the answer is there's not a single Olympic sport that I find boring. I love all of it.
Yeah, a couple quick things here to wrap it up. I just checked. I forgot about beach volleyball. My guy Phil Dalhauser, Bill Corrigan of the Smashing Pumpkins lookalike. At least in my mind, tall, bald. That's all it really takes
Yeah,
for me.
he was really
I
good.
forgot. Like that's my guy. He's like my favorite beach volleyball player to watch. He's fantastic. Also, wanted to clear up on nearsighted versus farsighted. It's exactly how it sounds. Farsightedness is the ability to only clearly see objects that are far away. Nearsighted is to see things that are close. So,
Okay.
doctors, we are not.
No,
Um,
no,
I
certainly
think
not.
that more or less wraps it. Well, no, not necessarily wrapping it up on the Olympics. Just really, really, really quickly.
Oh, the storylines for this year.
Storylines.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really, like the only storyline that matters a ton to me. I don't follow Olympics as much as you do, but that's COVID. Unfortunately, the event has been postponed from Tokyo from 2020 to now. In fact, we're actually going to be kind of running up right on the 2022 Winter Olympics coming up within a couple of months just after the Summer Olympics, and already we've seen a number of athletes who are being held in protocols who are simply not going to be making it because they have either themselves tested positive for COVID or have been in close contact with somebody who has. I know that this has been a pretty big issue in Japan with just like the citizens in Japan, I should say, with Japanese
They
citizens.
didn't want the Olympics.
Right, because this is bringing, a bunch of unknown variables into their country, and I think they are 100% right to feel that way. This is going to be just kind of how we had with like the March Madness tournament, the one and doneness of it all. We're going to probably see that with the Olympics potentially, with athletes that qualify in a heat and then maybe they're not able to actually race for a medal or something along those lines. It's going to be terribly unfortunate on many, many levels to see this. Um, this now's not the right time to tease a statement of the week. I'm going to do it anyway. This is kind of teasing a solution I have for this
Sure.
problem in the future that I'm going to talk about in statement of the week. But we're going to see these great athletes that have persevered, that have continued to train throughout the additional training time, prepping for Tokyo last year, having to prep for it this year. That's the thing that I'm watching for the most, is that resilience to kind of put a more positive spin on
Sure.
this. And
Sure.
I'm hoping we don't see. I hope we see minimal tragedy, both large scale and then within the events themselves out of this. I hope we see a minimal amount of that and a maximal amount of resilience and athletes persevering through this as they always do. It's just an extra take it to this time.
Yep. I completely agree with you. Just real quickly on that, before I give you several storylines that I'll be following, I think the big thing with that is to see how the athletes respond without the crowds. They sort of, and I know some of those athletes are more used to a lot of events where they don't have as big of a crowd, but certainly some athletes feed off the crowd more than others. So we'll see who this affects and how it affects them. That'll be interesting to follow. For me, I've got a big storyline. I've got it written down: the American women's athletes.
Hmm.
They are so good right now. They are going to carry the country. We've talked about several of them. Simone Biles, the best gymnast in the world. A big storyline to me is, can she win four individual golds? I think she's going to win the all around. She's going to win the team all around. Those two are near locks. But for me, is she's got three events that she could win the individual gold: the vault, the floor, which the floor she's almost a lock there. But
Oh,
then
for
you have
sure.
you have the vault and you have the beam. And the beam, she got a bronze at the last Olympics, and she fell on the beam at Olympic trials. So can she get a gold in the balance beam? Can she bring home five total golds and four individual golds? Because that for her is what she wants to do. She doesn't want a bronze or silver.
Hmm.
Katie Ledecky, I think, is sort of the face of USA Swimming now. We talked about her and the lengths, how much she was beating people by. Four golds in the last Olympics. I look for her to shine. Allison Felix in track, I mentioned her earlier. She's in her fourth Olympics, looking to win a medal for the fourth time. She does the 200, the 400. She's done the 4x1, three different events. 35-year-old. She was a mother last year. So she probably should be getting a lot more hype than she is. But I think Biles is going to go 4 for 4. I think Ledecky is going to shine, and I'm hoping Felix shines as well. I know she didn't dominate Olympic trials as much as she has in the past, so that'll be interesting. But if you watch Olympics, those races for the women, the 1, 2, and the 4, it's like America, Jamaica, and then no one else. So
Hmm.
it's like the USA trials are kind of the main competition. USA men's basketball, can they deliver the gold after losing two exhibitions? We talked a lot about that last show, and we'll talk about it more as we go through the Olympics. I won't spend a ton of time on it, but I think they need to, and I think they will. I think they'll get it together and they'll win. I have written down who are going to be the breakout stars of the Olympics. I know, especially for America, we have Simone Biles as sort of the face of America, but outside of Biles, I don't know that we have an American or a world face. Like we had Bolt and Phelps,
Well,
in
Bolt's
years
Jamaican,
past.
just to clarify.
What did I say?
You said that Bolt was like an
Oh,
American face of the
well,
Olympics.
Biles I meant. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, Biles. And my point is though, who's going to emerge as a star for America? Who's going to emerge as a star in the world? One guy that I look for, just having done some notes, Noah Lyles, the 200-meter
Hmm.
winner in the last World Championships. He could be a big American star. Shelly Ann Fraser, who's a Jamaican sprinter, also 34. She's going to be fun to watch. And then the other thing I've written down, the new sports that we'll have at the Olympics, which are baseball and softball making their return, karate, skateboarding, which could be fun, sports climbing, and surfing. So a few new sports to check out this year. And I didn't write this down. Some of them I think are only going to be in this Olympics. Some are a trial run. So a lot of those athletes get that extra exposure. So I hope that we have as many sports as possible for as long as possible. But yeah, that'll do it with the Olympics. We're going to do British Open, then we'll do locks. And we'll do our locks that we have, the picks that we have written down. I know we're pushing close to game time, but I think we'll get them in before. But no rush there. We'll do the British Open recap. What did you watch the British Open? I actually watched it a little bit before I left for our meeting in Chicago yesterday.
No, I was working and or exhausted, so I caught maybe like 5 minutes as like some groomsmen were watching it during prep. So I know, like, recap wise, my guy, I don't know why he gets to be my guy. Everybody's my guy. Colin Morikawa apparently did pretty well. Jordan Spieth did well on the tournament as well. I don't think to win Victor Hovland finished necessarily all that great.
He finished tied for 12th. Drew's pick, Tommy Fleetwood, tied for 33rd. And my pick, Jordan Spieth, in second. So I won that battle. Real quickly, a few great storylines. Colin Morikawa, he made golf history Sunday, becoming the first player to win 2 different major championships on his first try. In fact, he's won 2 out of 8 majors he's entered. He's the first player since Bobby Jones in 1926 to have won 2 or more, or two majors in 8 or less starts. So he's literally hitting 25% on majors right now. Also cool to see Jordan Spieth rebound. He struggled a lot the last few years. He was entered the year ranked in the 80s. Now he's all the way to 23rd in the latest golf rankings. Him getting second place was cool to see. And I'm hoping that Spieth builds on this. And I think he's going to have himself a major this next season, given how well he's playing. Morikawa might have another one, given his 1 in 4 percentages. He might get another one next year. Real key putt was on 14. Spieth was 2 shots back. Would have been 1 shot back if Morikawa didn't make the birdie. He makes a long birdie on 14, and from there, it was all Colin. Didn't bogey at all down the stretch. Phenomenal performance in the clutch by him. And real fast before locks of the week, I just want to mention the Gold Cup really fast. The North American soccer competition. This, by the way, is all part of the summer of soccer. For a sports fan like me, we have the Copa America, the Euros, we have the Gold Cup, we have the Olympic women's tournament, the Olympic men's tournament, just so much soccer to watch. I mean, I'm loving it. But USA and Mexico doing what they were supposed to do, both of them winning their groups, but both struggled a little bit. Mexico had a tie game. USA had 2 games that they only won by 1 goal. But nonetheless, they're both in the quarterfinals, and they should meet in the final on August 1st. So if they both take care of their next 2 games, it would be USA and Mexico in the final. I know we talked about USA having their B team in it, so Mexico has to be the favorite, but that'll be something to track for sure. But speaking of USA, I had them in my locks of the week last week. The one game that they didn't win by 1 goal, they won 6-1. I had USA Martinique over 3.5 goals. I also felt good on USA minus 2.5. I should have doubled down on that game, but unfortunately I didn't. I had A's minus 1.5 over the Indians. The A's winning 5-4 on a walk-off home run, which was crazy, but just not enough to get the two-run line. And you had that game as well. They changed pitchers on us, by the way. So that didn't help us. I had the Suns minus 4 over the Bucks. The Bucks winning 123-119. Tom, you had the A's game that I missed also. You had the Blue Jays over the Rangers minus 1.5. Blue Jays winning 10-2. And you picked Chinese baseball at 5:30 in the morning. The Rakuten Monkeys over the Weichang Dragons. Great pick there. They won 4-2. Drew, back-to-back 0-3 weeks. Jamaica and Guadalupe soccer under 2.5. That finished 2-1. He had Qatar and Grenada under 3.5. That finished 4-0. So he just barely missed both of those. And Aussie Football League, he had the Gold Coast Suns and Western Bulldogs under 151.5. It was 169. So that one went way over. We do have some historic moments. And I'll give you credit for it. For the first time all year, we've been doing this show for 41 weeks now. You are in first place for the whole time. It's been, I think I've had it about half the time. Drew, maybe like 40%. And then you now hopping in with that 10% at the end. Tom is one game over 500. Or actually, 500 exactly.
I'm even, yep.
Even on the season. I've been over 500 the last few weeks. Now one game under, but expect to be 2 games over after a 3-0 week. And Drew Brackett now all of a sudden is 12 games under after back-to-back 0-3 weeks. We have Drew's picks. Let's read those off first. Let's see. Drew's picks. Where is Drew's picks?
I have it as Gold Cup.
Yep, I've got him.
Qatar versus Honduras under 2.5. That's on January 20th. So that'll be
July 20th.
Tomorrow.
You just said January.
That's what I meant. I'm thinking Winter Olympics already. Olympics, women's soccer, USA versus Sweden under 2.5 on July 21st. And then Olympics men's basketball, he's going Czech Republic to cover 16.5 over Iran. Okay. Whatever. That's what Drew picked on the 24th. Common, what do you have? I know we've got a little bit of a time crunch. What do you have on the docket for this week?
Oh, yes. Some of our games are about to first pitch here, but I think we'll squeeze them all in just in time. Real quickly, I do want to mention that USA-Sweden game. That's an Olympic storyline that I forgot to mention. The USA women's soccer team, last Olympics, the only Olympics that they didn't get a medal in, and they lost in the quarterfinals against Sweden. So this is sort of like a revenge game. So that'll be a good game to watch. As far as my locks of the week, I've got the Rangers to win at the Tigers, money line at -110. I know Texas isn't good. They've got a worse record, and they're on the road in this game. But who do they have pitching? They've got the ace, Mizzou's own Kyle Gibson. He's 6-1 with a 2.29 ERA. Casey Mize for Detroit is 5-5 with a 3.59 ERA. He actually hasn't pitched more than 4 innings in either of his last 2 starts. So Texas gets the win here behind a great outing from its Cy Young candidate. In fact, if you want to get more money, bet them at -1.5 or live game bet this if you see this soon. And then moving on, I have the Angels to win at the A's, money line -105. Ohtani is on the mound, 4-1 with a 3.49 ERA against Cole Irvin, who's 6-8 with a 3.65 ERA. As you see, I've got a theme with my picks. I'm picking the teams with the better pitchers, and Ohtani's ERA is one of the most deceptive things in sports. He had it in the 2s most of the season. He had one bad outing, 0 2/3 innings, where he allowed 7 runs against the Yankees 2 outings ago. Last time out, only 2 runs allowed against the great Boston lineup over 7 innings. And then he went 1-2-3 in the All-Star game as well in that inning. So I think Ohtani rebounds. He has a great outing. You know, this could be one of those like 10K outings for Ohtani tonight. So maybe check the over-under on the strikeouts because he's going to deliver tonight. And finally, I've got my borderline mortgage bet of the week. This one is just a line that, you know, bet big on this one. Just go ahead and put all your money down on this one. I like the Astros -1.5 over the Indians at -110. So you can make pretty good odds there, pretty good money. Zach Greinke, 8-3 with a 3.59 ERA in this game for the Astros. The Indian starter, JC Mejia, is 1-4 with a 7.42 earned run average. Mejia has allowed 6 runs or more in 3 out of his last 4 starts, including the last 2. In fact, on July 1st, against the same Astros lineup, he allowed 6 runs over 4 innings. The Astros winning 7-2 on the road. The Astros swept the Indians on the road in that series. Now they're back at home. Houston has Cleveland's number. They should win no problem. By the way, the Astros have the best lineup in baseball. They've scored the most runs in baseball. The last two games against our White Sox, they scored 0 and 1 runs. So the best lineup in baseball has scored 1 run in the last two games. You better believe they're going to be teeing off against a terrible Indians pitcher. So the Astros win by 2 or more tonight.
Yep, I have that one as well of Astros covering 1.5. I have Reds over the Mets on the money line at -116. Mets starter Jared Eichhoff has a 4.97 ERA, but a 9.33 FIP. FIP is a calculation of home runs, walks, and or batters hit, and strikeouts. So it's basically what can a pitcher control independent of defense. For context, 4.4 FIP is below average, so 9.33 is horrendous. The Reds are 10th in runs scored. The Mets are 29th. So I don't think they're going to be able to keep up, even though they're going up against a mediocre pitcher like Vladimir Gutierrez. I think the Reds are going to win this game. And then the last one is, another 1.5 run cover. Give me the Padres to cover that over the scuffling Atlanta Braves. Ronald Acuna Jr. injured, of course. The Braves did pick up Jock Peterson from the Cubs. But even still, the
He's
Padres,
not that good, though. I can tell you, he didn't hit very much in Chicago.
The Padres, or rather, he's not that good. The Padres, I think, have like a +95 run differential. The Braves are like around 20, 25. So give me the Padres to cover 1.5 runs. So Houston -1.5, San Diego -1.5, and then Cincinnati to win outright over the New York Mets.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the Reds-Mets game, but I completely agree with you on the other two games. So worst case, you go 2-1, I go 3-0, then we're back tied for first place. How does that sound?
That works, I suppose.
Drew Brackett, who knows? Who knows what he's doing with his picks? But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we got some good statistics in baseball. I think it's going to be some good lines to track tonight because there's not that much sports on. Did the I guess the White Sox have a doubleheader today, don't they? Did they win game one?
They do. I'm just seeing the new number posted. Okay, so I'm regretting the Reds. Oh no, Jose Barrios against Reynaldo Lopez. You can get the Twins at -125 on the money line. And Reynaldo Lopez wasn't doing well in AAA, let alone Major League.
But did the Sox win the first game with Lance Lynn? Is it a doubleheader, 7-inning games?
That's bottom 7th tied at 1, so I have no idea if that's gone to extra innings or not. But that was a low-scoring one.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
man.
We'll see. Don't bet against the White Sox, Tom. So you've got your picks locked in. Don't go against your hometown Sox.
I know, but I'm just saying, you got Jose Barrios, the Twins' best pitcher, going up against arguably the worst pitcher that the White Sox have started this year.
Okay.
-125 ain't so bad. Moving on to statements of the week. You want to start, Common, or do you want me to throw out my wacky idea?
It's up to you. Mine is well, I don't know. I'll start. We'll end on yours. Yours will probably be more fun because I enjoy your wacky ideas. My statement, and I just realized this now. I wasn't even thinking about this earlier. You may have had a similar statement a few weeks ago, but I'll get it in with an updated deal. I will say this. This has been the most dramatic and unpredictable NBA playoffs I've ever watched in my lifetime. It might be the most unpredictable that we've ever seen, and certainly one of the best, if not the best. We've seen so much craziness, and I'll tell you this, injuries have played a part of it. We don't want to see anyone getting hurt, but, unpredictability is exciting. We had the Clippers go down 2-0 in their first two series against the Mavericks and Jazz, coming back from down 2-0 twice. We had the Bucks get down 2-0 against the Nets, coming back and winning in a wild Game 7. Certainly James Harden, Kyrie Irving injuries contributed to that. But the Bucks, again, down 2-0 in the finals. They're up 3-2 now, one win away from winning on their own home court. We had no 1 seeds make the Final Four for the first time in forever. I had it written down when we first did it, but it's been ages since no 1 seeds or no 1 seeds were in the Final Four. We had the defending champion Lakers. Again, Anthony Davis injury played a part in that. But anytime LeBron James gets knocked out in the first round, which this was like the first time that's ever happened, I think, um, it makes headline news. You have the defending champs losing in the opening round. You've got the storylines of Chris Paul and Giannis, NBA stars who haven't won before. We had the Atlanta Hawks, a 5 seed, beating the 1 seed 76ers. They won 3 games on the road in Philly, in their building, despite Philadelphia, quite frankly, being probably the best team, home team in basketball the last 3 or 4 seasons. Huge doings by Trae Young. He had a huge his coming out party. Trae Young, Luka Doncic, Donovan Mitchell, all these guys just playing phenomenal basketball in the playoffs. The league is in good hands. You know, when LeBron retires, Durant, you know, Curry might follow a few years after him. They've got a ton of young stars. Doncic, obviously we've seen Devin Booker and what he's doing. Trae Young and what he did. These guys are all in their 20s, early 20s. Donovan Mitchell, just phenomenal basketball. Zion Williamson, who we haven't even seen in the playoffs. It's gonna be great. These playoffs have been great. These finals have been great, and I'm hoping for a little more unpredictability with the Suns, who were the favorite going into the series. All of a sudden now the underdog as they're down 3-2. Hats off to the NBA. It's proof that the league is doing great. You don't need LeBron James or Curry to have fans, and the ratings are up from what they were. Well, last year they had a really bad year, but the ratings are comparable to what they were 2 years ago. So it's exciting, and I'll be happy for Giannis or Chris Paul. Good job, NBA playoffs. I'm only sad that you're going to go so soon. But the only silver lining is, as soon as the NBA playoffs exit, we've got the Olympics, and then we only have about 2 weeks of dead time, and then we're back to college football, NFL football, and I think La Liga soccer, I think, starts on August 15th. So that'll be fun.
Absolutely, yeah. A quick update on the locks. Right now, the Padres and the Braves are in a rain delay. If that game gets canceled, I'm going to lock in that Jose Barrios thing I talked about.
Okay, so
I'm saying that now as the backup.
Yeah,
I'm going to go against my Sox for the first time ever.
All right, so Twins over White Sox if the game doesn't happen tonight.
Exactly. So for my statement of the week, I'm actually going to begin it with a question. Have I ever talked to you? Have I ever mentioned Olympic Island?
No, never.
Never. That's surprising me because we talk a lot of sports together. Olympic Island is an idea that I have had for years now, and similar to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, nobody at the IOC is responding to my calls, emails, tweets, carrier pigeons, Pony Express, anything. Olympic Island is this idea I had in my head because I keep reading articles every single Olympics about how a city such as Athens, Greece, such as Tokyo, Japan, where some other ones have been, Rio de Janeiro, what they have to do is they have to come up with these grandiose plans of how they're going to host all these athletes from around the world in their particular city. And what we're finding now more than we ever have, simply because human populations are as large as they are, is that it's really difficult to fit that kind of space into an enclosed city, relatively enclosed city. So the thinking in my head was, you make something called Olympic Island, and it is where you have every single year, it's a neutral site where every single country comes and they do the Olympics the exact same way. What you cut down on is the expense of building up facilities every single time you want to try to host something somewhere.
You're always thinking of the money.
You have your one centralized location. Every country that participates in the Olympics pays a proportional share for maintenance and general upkeep. And then, and this would play for both Winter and Summer Olympics. Every 2 years, you have your Olympic events there, whether it's the Winter Olympics or the Summer Olympics. And you can have so many like great benefits from this. You can have in the off years, you can have tourism. You can have people come and stay at Olympic Island. You can open up the Olympic Village to just, ticket pairs who want to, stay at the same lodging, the same accommodations that Michael Phelps or Simone Biles or Usain Bolt or anybody has stayed. that's like it's I think it's an incredible idea. I think it's a an efficient idea. I think it'd be great because it also, takes away from the hassle of day-to-day life. How much more congested, how much more stress are the folks living in Tokyo and surrounding areas going to have, because all of a sudden entire sections of the city are cordoned off. Traffic is going to be a nightmare. I'm thinking of the little people here as much as I am the stars and the athletes that show up. You can still even have host cities, or host countries rather, where China or Japan or America or England, they can still have hosting capabilities. You can still have themes and banners and presentations highlighting different countries' deep and rich cultures. It doesn't have to be on the actual ground upon which that country resides. So I think Olympic Island should be the thing. I have a great idea for it. IOC is not responding. Neither is Jeff Bezos. Neither is Richard Branson. Neither is Warren Buffett. Nobody.
What about try Bill Gates?
I could try Bill Gates. We'll see how he's going after certain proceedings in his personal life that we will not delve any further
Well, you can try
into.
Melinda Gates also.
Do that too.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that this is a relatively good idea, and I have so few of them, and yet I have no means by which to act upon this. I'm not even an engineer. I can't even design it. I'm just like throwing this out into the ether, hoping that somebody will pick it up. I'm not even necessarily looking to profit, but if you want to throw something back my way, tickets for life type of thing, wouldn't say no to that. But it's an
And
idea. I
tickets
think
for
it's
life for your friend Common also.
I should be able to have at least like a suite of some
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah.
know?
Like allowed
Okay.
like up to 4 guests or something.
Sure.
Bring your wife and your parents and me. We'll have a fun time.
Well, that's 5 people. Who are we bumping from the list?
Well, like a suite with 5 people.
Oh, I usually think of suites as having 4 people.
4.
But, yeah.
All right. Well, mom and dad can flip
Throw
a
some
coin.
tickets my way. It's fine. Give me even just like a discount or something like that.
I'll tell you this, Tom. You at first I was gonna say one of the things that I don't like about it, and I don't know how much you have a detailed plan, was one of my favorite things about having a host city is you learn about that city's culture.
Sure.
And NBC does great coverage on that. But I do think maybe what you're saying, like maybe they have like the host city and they're learning about the culture. They're not on the physical premises. Although I will tell you this, though, they definitely do a lot of cool pieces where they physically go into like a restaurant or an art space or something in the country. So I think it would be a little bit harder to highlight that.
I mean, I think you can still do that. You can still have Olympic crews going there. You can still have like the B-roll shots of like skylines and stuff like that. I mean, it's not necessarily strictly 1-to-1, but I think you could do that. You could still get
my other
nighttime
question would
shots
be,
of,
yeah, the other question would be like the financing for it, because obviously, like when a country undertakes the responsibility for the Olympics, I mean, it's like you could win money, you could lose money in ways you
You almost always lose money if you're a host country.
Yeah.
You get like next to no benefit once the Olympics are gone. The economic benefits of hosting all these people are negligible, and the taxpayers are footing the bill for however long. I think that to kind of finance Olympic Island, if you don't have a wealthy philanthropist, I think it's that, each country should contribute an amount proportional to the number of athletes that they send to the Olympics.
See, that makes sense, because my question was going to be, and I guess a lot of times again, I don't know. I don't have the economics behind this, but I would just say just a general statement without having done the research and having made the plan myself. I guess technically a lot of times countries who have more athletes tend to have more economic means. Because that was my question. It's like a small country that sends only a few athletes. Like we don't expect them to contribute as much as America, do we? I don't know.
No, it's equitable, not equal.
Okay, equitable. I guess it gets tricky how some countries like maybe send like a big team of like 12 basketball players, but maybe they're only in like 3 other events. I don't know.
Yeah, like those particulars get worked out. I mean, I also think, the optimal one is you have a really wealthy person who does that and then basically collects money, like gets a cut of the TV deal, gets a cut of all the concessions and everything. Because if people are going to be coming to this island, I mean, you're going to need other facilities. You're going to have restaurants. You're going to be. It's a job creation thing,
So
Common.
is this
People,
like Jurassic World? Is this the Jurassic World of
but
sports?
without the fear of getting eaten.
Without the fear of getting eaten. Man, I don't know.
If anything, I have more vision than the guy for Jurassic Park. I have more vision than he
yeah,
does, or at least a safer vision. We'll see
uh,
about that.
a more
I mean, dinosaurs are a pretty grand vision. I got to admit.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think
I got to slow my roll.
yeah, your
That's a
vision
heat check 3.
a heat check times 3. I'll tell you this about Olympic World. The likelihood isn't very high.
Oh gosh, no.
But it really would be something. What I was gonna say is maybe they can make a movie about Olympic World, like how they do about Jurassic Park. So
Mhm.
maybe you need to start contacting directors. I don't know. Peter Jackson, I know, is pretty good. Maybe get him on the
Maybe.
line.
But see, Jurassic Park, wasn't that a whole thing about like being careful about messing with science too much? You know, too much of like playing God type of thing. Like, I don't want to scare people away from Olympic Island. So we need to have some sort of like, Airbud type of movie where everybody ends up really, really happy.
Well, I love golden retrievers. It was my dog's birthday party yesterday. So if maybe we can get my dog to be like the official face of Olympic Island. How does that sound?
Better
That
than my
might help.
face.
Yeah, well, better than mine too. Well, I mean, nothing surprises me when it comes to your far-fetched ideas. But this is why you're Tom Castleman, and this is why it's Salute Your Sports. We bring you more ideas and commentary and sayings and things that you won't hear on ESPN. You won't hear on FS1. We have it exclusively here on Salute Your Sports. And the beauty of it, this gets posted to YouTube. You can watch it anytime. Just search Salute Your Sports.
Ad free, I think.
Ad free. As of right now, no one is paying us. Ad free. You can find it on our Facebook page, Salute Your Sports, on Twitter, LinkedIn. It's just free, fun ideas. And you know what? If you have a fun idea, let us know. We're always open to viewer ideas. Certainly, these posters, my executive producer, my girlfriend, came up with the idea for my background. This is my newest one that I just got yesterday. I put it up. So, we'll see.
Nice.
We'll see what happens. I'm gonna go track those baseball bets, see how we're doing, and the Drew bracket picks. You want to hear the funny part? Not well.
Not well for one of them for me.
Oh, for you. I don't even think my games have started yet. Have they started?
No, I'm like the early games have started. I think the Mets have already jumped on mediocre Vladimir Gutierrez.
Oh well,
hopefully the Reds can mash a little bit.
I didn't pick the Mets game.
No, you did not. That's
I know
me
Ohtani's a late game
0-1.
and the Astros are a late game. I think I had one early one. What's going on right now?
Ooh, bottom of the first, Cincinnati's down 3-1, but they got the bases loaded with no out. So it might be looking better.
All right. Well,
no, you had the early one was Texas and Detroit. That one is no score in the bottom of the second. They're flying through that game.
Wow, that's going real fast. Well, the ace,
yeah.
Kyle Gibson, is delivering, as I said he would. He just needs one run support. Get him the 1-0 win, Texas. No, 2-0, because I gave you a bonus maybe at -1.5. I can't remember.
Cincinnati just tied. All right, we got to end this so I can.
We'll end it so you can go track baseball, MLB app, or whatever you watch. Everyone have a good night. We'll have more Salute Your Sports next week. We'll know who the NBA champ is. We'll recap that, and we'll have started the Olympics, so we'll actually have some action to talk about. So have a good night, everyone. Enjoy Salute Your Sports. As always, Common Enchev, Drew Brackett not here, but a pleasure to have Tom Castleman. And Hugh might go on his own Olympic island to watch the Olympics next week. We'll see what happens. Have a good day, everyone.